Right now, the day's biggest news stories from a Vegas perspective. This is the Vegas Take with Sharp and Shapiro.
All right, welcome back. It is the Vegas Take. Sharp and Shapiro rolling out hour number 3 on a Wednesday. Glad you could join us. And as you know, we talk a lot of UNLV hoops on this show. We're excited that the UNLV basketball season really right around the corner. They played a preseason game on Friday. And, former Runnin' Rebels have been in this studio a lot. We've interviewed Larry Johnson on the show. We've interviewed many former Rebels, and I've had the opportunity to get to know Robert Smith really well. Of course, he's a former point guard for UNLV's first Final Four basketball team. He was a star on that 1977 Rebels team, nicknamed the Hardway 8. Just a great guy. And we learned some really sad news about a month ago that he suffered a severe stroke. And now there's a GoFundMe page up, and I figured what better person to talk about this and try to get some people involved than the voice of the UNLV Runnin' Rebels, who has worked for years with Robert Smith, and that is Jon Sandler, who joins us right now on the line. Jon, thank you so much for being here. We appreciate it. How are you?
I'm okay, guys. I'm always willing to talk about Robert Smith.
Yeah, and I'm so glad you came on to do this. So you know Robert probably better than anybody. How many years have you been working with him?
We worked together for 10 years to this point. 10 years of a wonderful partnership and a lot of fun and a lot of cold nights in Laramie, Wyoming, and other glamour spots. But Robert always has a smile on his face.
Yeah, and in talking to Robert over the years myself, you couldn't find a nicer guy, right? Great family man, just a really good dude who really knows basketball inside and out as well. So I would imagine when you first heard this, Jon, it became a shock to you. Certainly it was a shock to me and many in the community because Jon, correct me if I'm wrong, but Robert seemed like he was a pretty healthy guy, right? In pretty good shape.
Robert was amazing. Yeah, I mean, Robert could still go out, and school guys on the court, 64 years old. We'd go to shoot around or practice and, in arenas around the country, and Robert would go run stairs and things like that. We'd take an Uber to the arena. Robert would walk. There was one night in Laramie that he, I think, regretted that decision, but nonetheless, he was in terrific shape, and I think it points out that the risks and dangers of stroke don't necessarily have everything to do with your level of fitness. There are all sorts of factors go into it, and I think we all need to be aware. So yes, it was an incredible shock to hear that Robert had suffered a stroke, and we miss him terribly. And are hoping for recovery at some point, but we really don't have a prognosis right now.
And I understand that. I didn't want to
smile.
Yeah, of course we all do. And I didn't want to pry, but can you give people an update on where he is at right now? Is he able to talk? How severe is this? Obviously, he's still in the hospital. Can you give us an update on where he is right now with his health?
The family is trying to keep all of those details private. Suffice to say that it was a very severe stroke and that there is currently no firm prognosis for timing or level of recovery. Let's leave it at that. He certainly is unable to. He's still in the hospital and he's unable to perform, his duties as color commentator for the Runnin' Rebels or
Sure.
all the coaching and community work that he's done. And it's regardless of the specifics, it's going to be a very long and arduous, hopefully, recovery and rehab process.
Well, I'm so sorry to hear that, and my thoughts and prayers certainly are out to his family and friends, and of course people like yourself who were so close to this man. And we hope he makes a full recovery. But as you said, this is going to take a long time. So now let's talk about, Jon, how the community can get involved here. My understanding is that you have a GoFundMe page, and I checked it out this morning. And by the way, we are putting this GoFundMe page on our Twitter page at The Vegas Take. As I checked this morning, the goal is $100,000. I looked at it's a little bit over $53,000, so you're a little bit more than halfway there. Can you talk a little bit about this and how people can get involved?
Sure. It's really very simple, and just to understand what's going on here. Not only is Robert suffering through his issue, but Robert's wonderful wife, Gloria, is also having some health issues. And so the GoFundMe page is to try to help offset costs that are going to be incurred for the entire family. But it's very simple. You go to GoFundMe.com. You can search either UNLV or Robert Smith. His bright and shining face comes popping right up, and it's just click on the button and go from there. And any level of support is appreciated.
Sure.
Anything that you can do. This is a person and a man who has given to the Las Vegas community from the moment he got here, his junior year of college, and was part of that Hardway team, to very recently running youth camps, substitute teaching, volunteering, coaching at various places around the community, at Bishop Gorman and other places, and always was willing to help, especially with kids who are interested in developing their basketball skills. And I've said it before. Walter Payton was known as sweetness. I think Robert Smith should be known as kindness.
Absolutely, absolutely.
And so please, whatever you can do to help would be strongly appreciated.
Absolutely. And again, we are putting that on our Twitter page, the GoFundMe page, and we hope as many people as possible can get involved and help this family through such a difficult time. On a personal note, Jon, I wanted to ask you this because you've been working with Robert for such a long time now. What was it like for you personally? I would imagine it was very difficult. You broadcasted that preseason game, right? They played several days ago. How weird is that for you to be broadcasting a game? And don't get me wrong, you're broadcasting with Curtis Terry, who's a great kid, was a great Rebel, and I'm sure he'll do a great job. But how difficult is it for you now to be able to have to sit down and do these Rebel games without Robert right next to you?
Yeah, it's hard. You develop a good, working relationship and a great friendship over the 10 years, and it sort of permeates all aspects of that working relationship. So, Robert and I, and any broadcast team that works together for an extended period of time, you learn each other's habits, and you learn, without having to do hand motions or looks or anything, when someone is going to talk and when they're not going to talk, and how to come in and how to get out, and almost what they're going to say. And that will develop over time with Curtis. He is absolutely terrific and has unbelievable potential. His knowledge of the game is fantastic. He's coached. He was, as you said, a terrific asset and a terrific player for UNLV as a walk-on, which gives him a little bit of a different perspective in terms of what is brought to the game. But your question is very apt. It was strange, and it will continue to be strange. And it will be different. As I said, you develop a relationship, you develop a sort of that unspoken rapport with your broadcast partner, and that's just something I'm going to have to work with.
Yeah, no question. And I'm sorry you have to go through that. But Curtis, if you had to pick somebody to fill in, Curtis, I agree. He's a great guy. I'll always remember that unbelievable senior year he had here under Lon Krug. It was a phenomenal season. And yeah. Curtis is a great kid. And, of course, he's also related to another Terry, Jason Terry. I believe that's his cousin, if I'm not mistaken.
Who is actually closer to that. I think it's a half-brother, actually.
Half-brother. I apologize. Of course, yeah. a fantastic NBA career that Jason has had as well. What a great family. I guess I would be remiss, Jon, if I didn't ask you one or two quick questions about UNLV basketball, if that's okay with you.
Sure.
Of course, I appreciate that. Of course, this comes at a pretty exciting time, right, for UNLV basketball. It's the TJ Otzelberger era. I've said it before a million times, and I'll say it again. I think he's done a fantastic job to this point in reaching out to the community. He's been very gracious to me. And I think, and not to go back to past coaches, but I think Otzelberger just gets it. He understands how important it is to get out in the community and speak to people. I think he's done a phenomenal job. What do you make of what he's done so far? And I understand the season opener's coming up soon, and it's time to win basketball games. But I think to this point, I'd give him an A+.
Yeah, I would agree with you. That's a different aspect. It's part of the portfolio that's required of head basketball coaches these days. And I think that TJ did as you said, just an absolutely terrific job of connecting with the community and creating some buzz that we haven't seen around the program in quite a while. But getting to know him, and I have to give credit and kudos to Desiree Reed-Francois for finding him and finding exactly what she said she wanted, a laser-focused, dedicated, passionate coach who is all about winning.
Sure.
And that's TJ. I mean, the the practices I've seen, the interactions I've witnessed with his staff and with his coaches, and frankly with us, it is all about the details, the absolute minutia, everything that goes into building a program or rebuilding a program back to a consistent winner. And he is that laser-focused, passionate. Don't get in his way. Don't expect him during the season to focus on anything but basketball. And I think that's what fans want around here. And I think you're going to see over time, because TJ has a specific style of play and a specific, very specific, detail and data-driven approach to the game that will take a little bit of time to get the right pieces in place. He inherited some talent, and he inherited, some terrific kids and some very good players, but not necessarily kids who fit all of what I just talked about.
Sure. No, that's a good point. Yeah, you bring up a good point there with talent. Yeah, and let me ask you this. So he's the highest paid coach in the Mountain West Conference. This is certainly a different year one than when Marvin Menzies took over, right? I don't want to compare and contrast, but let's be honest. Marvin Menzies had nobody in year one, and there were no expectations. I think this is different, John, and you tell me if you disagree or not. He does have some talent. We know David Jenkins, who joined us on the show a few weeks ago, really smart young kid. He won't be eligible until next year. I think next year it'll be fair to say they will have the best backcourt in the Mountain West with Amari Hardy and Jenkins. But this year is a little different, but you still have Amari Hardy. You still have some talented players. So what I say, John, and you tell me if you agree or not, is you're not going to beat Utah State, right? There's a reason why they're number one, and they're going to be a top 25 team, and they're probably going to be in the NCAA tournament, and I think I can see them winning a game or two. But I do think that UNLV has enough talent to compete for a title. It doesn't mean they're going to win. Be one of the top 3 or 4 teams in conference. It's not a great conference. I think if they can do that this year, top 4, let's just say, make the semifinals of the Mountain West Conference tournament, maybe get a postseason invite to the NIT, I think everybody would be happy with that. I think that's a reachable goal. What do you say to that?
I think everybody should be ecstatic if that happens. I mean, this is a team that was picked, I believe, 7th in the media poll. Partly because of the unknown, but also partly because the conference, outside of Utah State isn't great, but there are a lot of returning players on a lot of rosters. San Diego State has a lot of people back. Air Force has a lot of people back. New Mexico has a lot back and probably has more just pure basketball talent than anybody on their roster in the conference. So, projecting that high a finish at this point when we really haven't seen a lot of the product yet, I think that's optimistic. But I agree with you that if they were able to do that, that would be fantastic. I do agree that that TJ is in much better position in terms of talent than Marvin was. Marvin didn't have anybody, as you said. I mean, there was nobody here. Right. Players. But again, it's going to take time to get the right players, the players that fit that system. There is no question that you're going to see a level of discipline and a level of effort on the court that I think fans will be very appreciative of. You're going to see a pace of play that fans are going to be very appreciative of, and you're going to see a style of aggressive, on the ball and off the ball, aggressive defense that is trying to constantly apply pressure to the opposition that fans are going to appreciate. And how that translates into results, you can be the guy who does the conjecture. I'm just going to sit back and try to enjoy it.
Sure.
Yeah, so we had David Jenkins on the show a couple weeks ago, and he actually told us straight up, he told us verbatim, we practice defense basically 45 minutes out of an hour every single practice. I mean, we practice defense constantly this year. Do you believe that this team will be better defensively than the Marvin Menzies teams have been?
Yes.
Well, that's huge. That's huge, obviously.
That's massive. You have talent like Jong. You've got the long 6'11" Jong. Donnie Tillman is a plus athlete who just transferred in from Utah. So I agree with you. And if the team can be better defensively, they're not going to get blown out.
Sure.
Fans are going to attend the games.
No doubt. And the Mountain West Conference, as you know, John, is a tough defensive physical conference. So that'll certainly help. Well, listen, John, the main reason why I wanted you on the show today, and I appreciate you answering some of those questions, but was to talk about Robert Smith and, of course, to help the family out. So I want to give you another opportunity, John, before we let you go. Can you give out that information for our listeners? How can people get involved? How can people help Robert Smith, the Smith family?
Thank you. Yes. For right now, we're talking about other events that might take place and other fundraising activities. Right now, the focus is the GoFundMe page. Go to GoFundMe.com. It's all one word, and search either UNLV or Robert Smith. His picture will pop up, and you'll have the opportunity to click on a button and donate there. And as I said, anything that you can spare, anything that you feel like you want to help Robert and his family out during this very, very difficult time would be greatly appreciated.
Yeah, and absolutely. And John, if you have any other events in regards to Robert Smith that you want to promote, we would gladly have you on again, and we're going to put that GoFundMe page on our Twitter page. Thank you so much. I know it's not an easy thing for you to talk about, so we appreciate you, John, coming on and talking about it. Thank you so much. And if you need anything else from us, please let us know.
Thanks, guys. Really appreciate it.
Sure.
Yeah, thanks a lot, John.
There you go. Jon Sandler, the voice of UNLV basketball, longtime partner in the booth there with Robert Smith. And, I saw Robert Smith maybe about 8 months ago, and I was doing some basketball officiating part-time, and I was reffing this 3-on-3 tournament. I think it was like a 50 and over tournament, one of those. And I had actually never seen Robert Smith shoot a basketball before. I'll be honest. I wasn't born when he was on that 1977 team, right? So I know Robert because I see him around the games all the time, and he couldn't be nicer. So I shook his hand. Hey, Robert, how's it going? He's like, all right, you're going to give me some calls today, right? He's just joking around. And again, this is like 8 months ago. And I was kind of excited because this is a UNLV Rebel legend, and I've never seen him play before, and he's still in really good shape. I got to tell you, JD, I watched him play, and I was reffing his game. This guy has the smoothest jump shot I have ever seen in my life, especially at his age. It was so smooth. He's just knocking down contested jumpers everywhere, okay? This guy's in his 60s, right? He's knocking down jump shots everywhere. And I looked at him and I said, man, you still got it. He's like, I can't move like I used to, but I can still shoot the rock, And I was just, he was so funny. And I'm reffing his games, and I remember there was one call that he didn't like. And he's the kind of guy that would never yell. He would never say anything inappropriate. He looked at me, and he's like, ooh. That's all he said to me. He goes, ooh. And I said, Robert, you got him a little bit there. And he goes, yeah, but it was really a little bit, wasn't it? And he starts laughing. He was such a joy to ref. And I'm thinking to myself, you see a lot about someone's character in a competitive situation. I'm a complete jerk, like when I'm in any competitive situation at all. I admit, I'm a jerk. Robert was like the nicest guy, and this was a really heated competitive game. I had to give out a few technical fouls. It was an over 50 basketball game, but it was really competitive. These guys are all former college players. It was really cool, and it was right here in Vegas. And Robert could not have been nicer. Like, he was just I don't want to say was, because we hope he gets through this, and I don't mean to say that.
Don't say was, Brian.
He is such a nice human being.
But he was in that particular instance that you just described.
In that instance, right.
Right.
It doesn't sound good, and I don't want to speculate, but it doesn't sound good. It doesn't sound like he's in very good situation.
John said it was a very severe stroke.
It's not good.
If a recovery takes place, and he basically made it clear that if that happens, it's going to be a long, arduous one. Were his exact words.
Yeah. So it's not good,
and that's scary to think about. You're 62, 65 years old. You're in great shape, and just suddenly you can have a stroke like
64,
that. 64. Yeah. Well, that threatens your life. I mean, how many of our listeners are in their 60s and aren't in great shape?
This was a guy that was in phenomenal shape.
I know a lot of people that are in their 60s that aren't in great shape. So I'd like to know what actually caused this particular stroke. Maybe it was medication. I have no idea, but I'd like to know.
It's a tough month for UNLV because we just commented on Coach Chambers, who of course was a former baseball coach here at UNLV several years ago, and he just passed away. And then we learned a month ago or so that, Robert Smith has this really serious stroke. It sucks.
Yeah,
it's horrible.
My recommendation, go to the doctor once every 6 months and make sure your vitals are all right and make sure you're okay.
And even if you do that, that's no guarantee that something can't happen.
No guarantee, but at least you're trying to make preventative measures. And my grandmother actually she passed away a couple years ago, and she was in her late 70s, but she had cancer 10 years before, and it just randomly came back, and she didn't go to the doctor. Had she gone to the doctor a couple months earlier, they would have found it. She had a bad cough, and she just kind of avoided it. She didn't think much of it, and within 3 months she had stage 4 cancer that was all over her body. So and I think this is a prime example of that. If you are in your 60s or even late 50s or early 70s,
Sure.
make sure you go to the doctor a couple times a year.
No question. By the way, important to note just a little bit about Robert Smith's career. Of course, he played under Jerry Tarkanian, the Hardway 8. I like that as his nickname. He's a member of the UNLV Sports Hall of Fame. He also is a longtime Los Angeles native and, of course, Las Vegas, too. He played for 7 NBA teams. Served as the basketball coach at Bishop Gorman after his playing days, too. So he's done a great job here in Las Vegas. He's helped so many young men along the way. And, again, our thoughts and prayers are with Robert Smith and his family and friends. And we really do appreciate Jon Sandler taking some time to join us as well. Obviously, this is very difficult for him, a very difficult time. Please check out our Twitter page as the GoFundMe page is up, and help the Smith family. I know I will. So we're going to take a quick break. We'll be back right after this, and we will talk a little baseball, the World Series Game 7 tonight. We'll get to that coming up next. You're listening to The Vegas Take.